Tanya lay motionless, lost in a deep slumber on the plush king-sized bed at Jameson Hotel in the heart of Harare's CBD. The tranquility of her sleep was disrupted by the insistent vibration of her phone, which seemed to grow louder with each passing moment. Her body began to stir, reluctantly dragging her mind back to reality. As the vibration reached a fever pitch, her eyes snapped open, as if controlled by a will of their own. Groggily, Tanya reached for her phone and squinted at the screen, which displayed a 6 a.m. alarm. She swiped it away, hoping to steal a few more moments of sleep. But as she turned onto her side, her heart skipped a beat. Beside her, an unfamiliar form lay shrouded in the hotel's luxurious bedding. "Oh God, not again," Tanya whispered, her voice trembling. Panic set in as she scanned the room, taking in the unfamiliar surroundings. Her gaze fell upon her crumpled clothes scattered on the floor, and a wave of dread washed over her. "Tanya, no," she whispered, closing her eyes and offering a silent prayer, hoping to awaken from the nightmare that seemed to be unfolding before her eyes. "God, not again," Tanya whispered, her words faltering into silence. She stood still, feeling a wave of embarrassment as her eyes fell on the packet of Viagra pills lying on the floor. Carefully, she glanced at the man beside her. His bald head made her wince. He was older, not quite her father's age, but old enough. She stared at him, struggling to piece together the events of the previous night. She didn't even remember meeting him, yet here she was, in bed with him. The soreness between her legs told a story her memory refused to share. This was why she hated drinking too much. It led to poor decisions and deeper regrets. Enough, Tanya. No more regrets. She slid out of bed cautiously, grimacing at the lingering ache. Her gaze dropped to the floor, where used condoms lay scattered. She began counting them but stopped at 4, shaking her head. She didn't want to know how many times it had been, especially when she could barely remember a single moment. That had to be rape, right? Or maybe not? Feeling a wave of shame, she reached for her thong and slid it on, followed by her short dress. She caught her reflection in the mirror. Her wig was still intact, though the curls were a mess. Her gaze lingered on her complexion. Another skin-lightening session was overdue. She wasn't where she wanted to be. She adjusted her dress, her fingers brushing over her chest. The boob job still didn't feel quite right. A movement from the bed drew her attention. She walked over and gently shook the man. He sighed, his eyes fluttering open. Tanya believed in one thing. Nothing in life came for free, especially not her body. People could call her whatever they wanted, but she knew her worth. Nothing about her came without a price. The man smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Oh hey." Tanya's smile faltered as she glanced around the room, her gaze lingering on the scattered condoms. "Hi. I need to go." The man's face fell, but he quickly recovered. "Oh, I thought we'd stay and have some breakfast." He sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, and checked the time on his phone. "It's too early anyway." Tanya's expression turned somber, her voice taking on a melancholic tone. "My brother is in the hospital. I need to get to him." The man's face softened, and he offered, "Okay, I can drop you off." Tanya shook her head, her curls bobbing with the motion. "No, it's okay. I'll manage. Thanks." The man nodded, his smile returning. "I'll call you then." Tanya laughed, a husky sound that sent a shiver down the man's spine. "No, you won't. Just pay me then." As the man handed her a thick roll of cash, Tanya's face lit up with a radiant smile. She leapt into his arms, her voice dripping with gratitude. "Thank you, thank you." With a peck on the cheek, she swiftly exited the hotel, leaving the man lost in thought. Who is this girl really? He wondered. She's so full of life. I'd love to meet her again. In the parking lot, Tanya took a deep breath before answering a call from my love. "Hey, where are you?" Ryan asked, his tone laced with concern. "I'm at a friend's house," Tanya replied nonchalantly. Ryan sighed. "Which friend? I called you all night." "The whole night, Tanya." Tanya's voice remained calm. "I was sleeping, Ryan. My phone was on silent." "I'm sorry." Ryan's tone softened. "Okay, just remember dinner with my family later, all right?" Tanya's response was laced with boredom. "Yeah, you'll pick me up, right?" Ryan's voice remained gentle. "I will. Please go home now." Tanya rolled her eyes and parked her car at her house. She trudged inside, heading straight for her bed. Hours later, Ryan's knock on the door roused Tanya from her slumber. "Babe, you're not ready yet," he exclaimed. Tanya hastily showered and dressed, then stood before Ryan, adjusting her dress. "Do I look good?" she asked, seeking reassurance. Ryan's gaze lingered on her beautiful face, his smile warm. "Of course, but you need to relax." Tanya's eyes sparkled. "First impression, babe." With a confident sway of her hips, she walked past Ryan. The couple drove to their destination, where they were warmly welcomed by Ryan's mother, Natasha. "Wow, welcome my daughter," Natasha exclaimed, embracing Tanya. Natasha's eyes shone with admiration. "You're so beautiful. No wonder Ryan can't stop talking about you." Ryan watched the exchange, his heart filled with affection for the two most important women in his life. He felt confident that marrying Tanya was the right decision. As they waited for Ryan's father in the living room, the atmosphere was filled with anticipation and warmth. "I'm sorry I got stuck in." Ryan's father, Brian, stood frozen, his apology trailing off as his eyes locked onto Tanya's. His mind reeled in shock. "What is she doing here?" he thought, his eyes darting to Ryan, then back to Tanya. Tanya broke the awkward gaze, her thoughts racing. "Is this Ryan's father?" she wondered. "The same man who had ravished her the whole night? Oh God, this had to be a dream." She pinched herself, hoping to wake up. Their eyes met again, and Ryan's concerned voice cut through the tension. "Tanya, are you okay?" Tanya forced a weak smile. Yeah, just a slight headache." Ryan continued, oblivious to the undercurrents. "As I was saying, Dad, this is my girlfriend, my soon-to-be wife, Tanya. And Tanya, this is my dad." Tanya's eyes widened in horror. Her worst nightmare had come true. She blinked, swallowed hard, and judged herself silently. "Okay, maybe I am a... No. She pieced together the events of the previous night and groaned inwardly. The real issue was alcohol. She wasn't about to take accountability. Instead, she forced a bright smile. "I'm pleased to meet you, sir." Brian's smile seemed to freeze in place as he extended his hand. "Well, likewise, Tanya. Please, call me Brian." Tanya's eyes darted to Ryan, then back to Brian, her expression a mask of politeness. She cleared her throat, hesitating before pulling back her hand. I'll go help Natasha set the table," she said, excusing herself. As Tanya assisted Natasha, they engaged in light conversation, their laughter and chatter filling the room. Ryan turned to his father, beaming with pride. "So, what do you think?" he asked, his eyes shining with anticipation. Brian's gaze lingered on Tanya, his mind racing with the memories of their illicit night together. He felt a pang of guilt, knowing he had to keep his secret hidden. He turned to Ryan, forcing a warm smile. "She's beautiful and seems well-mannered. I like her. I'm proud of you, son," he said, patting Ryan's back. This was all Ryan wanted, his father's approval. The evening unfolded with a pleasant dinner, filled with light conversations. Natasha eagerly sought to know more about Tanya, asking her questions about her interests and hobbies. However, Brian struggled to engage in conversation with Tanya. His mind kept drifting back to their night together, her stark nakedness, her moans. He knew it was wrong, but he couldn't help the fire brewing inside him. He felt like he was torn between his loyalty to his son and his desire for Tanya. As the evening drew to a close, Tanya bid farewell, her eyes locking onto Brian's for a brief moment. Ryan walked her out, and they drove off together, leaving Brian to his turbulent thoughts. Brian's eyes remained fixed on the door, his mind reeling with the implications of his actions. He knew he had to keep his secret hidden, but he couldn't shake off the feeling that his life was about to unravel. As he turned to head back inside, Natasha approached him, a concerned expression on her face. "Brian, is everything okay? You seem a bit distracted." Brian forced a smile, trying to reassure her. "I'm fine, dear. Just a bit tired." Natasha's eyes lingered on his face, but she didn't push the issue further. Hey dude, let's get some rest. As they headed back inside, Brian couldn't shake off the feeling that his world was about to come crashing down. Ryan stood with Tanya at her doorstep, their hands intertwined. "So, what do you think of my parents?" he asked, his eyes shining with excitement. Tanya's smile was warm, but her eyes betrayed a hint of unease. "They're both lovely. I felt welcomed," she replied, her voice measured. Ryan beamed with pride, his face aglow. "I told you not to worry, you see," he said, his voice filled with warmth. The two shared a tender hug as they parted ways. As soon as Tanya stepped into her house, her phone buzzed with an incoming message. Her heart skipped a beat as she read the words, "Meet me at 10 a.m., same hotel." Tanya's eyes widened, her mind racing with the implications. She didn't need to be told who the message was from. The memory of Brian's piercing gaze and the forbidden night they shared still lingered, refusing to be extinguished. A shiver ran down her spine as she felt the weight of her secrets threatening to suffocate her. What was she getting herself into? "Should I tell Ryan?" she asked herself. The silence in Tanya's bedroom was deafening. She lay on her side, staring blankly at the shadows creeping across the ceiling. Her pillow felt heavy beneath her head, like it carried the weight of everything she couldn't say. Every time she closed her eyes, the same image returned: Brian's face, his touch, the moment that shouldn't have happened. What had she done? Sleep never came. And by the time the early light filtered through the curtains, Tanya had made a decision. Reckless or not, she needed clarity. She needed to face him. She found herself outside the hotel room, her eyes closed. She drew in a breath as if it might steady her trembling nerves. Then she knocked. "Come in." His voice, deep, calm, certain, reached her like a low hum that reverberated through her chest. She pushed open the door. There he stood, near the window, sunlight tracing his silhouette. Brian turned to face her, and the moment their eyes met, time seemed to stall. She swallowed hard. "Why am I here?" He didn't smile this time. His expression was unreadable. "We need to talk." Tanya shifted on her feet. The silence stretched between them like a live wire. "Don't tell Ryan," she said finally. Her voice cracked at the edges. "Please. Whatever happened that night, let's leave it in the past. It was a mistake. We both know that." Brian took a slow step forward. His presence was overwhelming, impossible to ignore. "A mistake," he repeated. "Is that what you believe?" Her breath caught. She didn't respond. "You can lie to yourself," he continued, his voice low and measured. "But you can't lie to me. I saw it in your eyes, Tanya. I felt it. You did too." Tanya looked away. The room felt warmer now, the walls closer. "It doesn't matter what I felt. It can't happen again." Brian moved even closer. He was just a few feet away now, and she could feel the heat of him, his intensity like a current crawling over her skin. "Why not? Because it's wrong? Or because it scares you?" She turned her back to him, her hands clenched at her sides. "Because I'm marrying your son," she whispered. Brian's silence behind her was deafening, and when he finally spoke, his words were soft, but piercing. "Then tell me the truth. Right here. Right now. Tell me you feel nothing when I touch you. Tell me you haven't thought about it every night since." Tanya spun around, anger and desperation flaring in her chest. "Stop it," she snapped. "This isn't fair. You're playing with fire, Brian." He didn't flinch. "Then why are you here?" She couldn't answer. Her throat tightened. Her heart thundered. Was it guilt that brought her? Or was it the part of her she kept buried? The part that wanted the wrong things? As she stared at him, a flicker of something dark and undeniable passed between them. It lingered in the silence, daring them both to speak. But neither of them did. The silence between them stretched, heavy and fragile. Tanya's heart pounded in her chest like it was trying to escape. She didn't know if it was anger or desire, or something far more dangerous, but her body betrayed her as she took a small, reluctant step forward. Brian's eyes searched hers, sharp and steady, and when he reached out, brushing his fingers against her arm, she didn't pull away. "Tanya," he said her name like a confession. Her breath hitched, and before she could stop herself, Her hand reached up to touch his face, just for a second. That second felt like a spark in dry grass. It was all the permission either of them needed. His mouth met hers. The kiss was not gentle. It was fire, hungry, desperate, forbidden. A clash of guilt and need, tangled in heat and recklessness. Tanya felt the ground slip beneath her as she melted into him, her fingers knotting in his shirt, pulling him closer like she needed his touch to stay upright. When they broke apart, it was only to breathe. "This is wrong," she whispered, voice trembling. "I know," he said. "But it doesn't feel wrong, does it?" She didn't answer. She couldn't. Because the truth was, it felt like the only real thing in a world that had suddenly lost its balance. Brian stepped back first, his chest rising and falling fast. "I booked this room for later." Her eyes widened. "Why?" His voice lowered. "You know why. You can fight it, Tanya, but we both know how this ends." She didn't speak, but something in her eyes betrayed her resolve. That look, that flicker of surrender, was all he needed. "I'll be there tonight," he said. "If you come, you come. If you don't, I'll never ask again." And with that, he walked past her and left the room, leaving Tanya in silence, breathless and shaken. That night, she stood in front of the hotel room door. Her hand hovered, trembling, her pulse a war drum in her ears. She could still turn around. Pretend this never happened. Go back to Ryan and the life she was building. But her hand moved. She knocked. The door opened, and there he was. Everything changed the moment she stepped inside. The door closed behind her with a soft click, but it might as well have been thunder. Tanya stood just inside the hotel room, motionless, staring at the man who turned her world upside down. Brian, her fiancé's father. He didn't speak right away. He didn't need to. The silence crackled between them, thick with everything they weren't supposed to feel. He looked different under the soft, golden light of the room. Less composed, more raw, vulnerable even. He had taken off his blazer and rolled up his sleeves, the top buttons of his shirt undone, revealing a hint of skin and the tension in his chest. His eyes never left hers. "You came," he said quietly. Tanya nodded. "I shouldn't have." "But you did." She swallowed hard. "What are we doing, Brian?" He stepped closer, slow and careful, like she was something breakable. Something neither of us can take back. She wanted to move, to run, but her feet wouldn't obey. Her heart was louder than reason. "I don't want to hurt Ryan," she whispered. "I don't either," he said, inching closer, his voice rough. "But lying to ourselves, that's already hurting us." He reached out, brushing her cheek with the backs of his fingers. She closed her eyes, aching at how right it felt. "This isn't just about lust," he said. "You feel it too. You felt it since that night. Don't deny it." Her breath hitched. She opened her eyes, and that was it. The moment snapped. He kissed her again, slower this time, deeper. And this time, she kissed him back without hesitation. Her hands slid over his chest, his arms wrapping around her waist, pulling her against him. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't reckless. It was deliberate. Clothes fell away like promises they never meant to keep. Every touch, every sigh, was laced with the thrill of danger and the ache of surrender. They made their way to the bed with the unspoken understanding that this was no longer a mistake. They had chosen this. When he laid her down and hovered over her, he paused. His eyes searched hers one last time. "Say the word, Tanya, and I'll stop." But she didn't say anything. She reached up, pulled him down, and let her actions speak. Their bodies moved together in a rhythm that felt too familiar to be new. The world outside ceased to exist. In that moment, there was only him and her, bound by a secret that could burn everything around them. And neither of them wanted to stop it. Tanya woke in the gray hush of morning, her body tangled in hotel sheets, her mind a mess of shame and satisfaction. Brian was still asleep beside her, his chest rising and falling in a slow, steady rhythm. In sleep, he looked softer, less dangerous, but no less forbidden. She slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and stood by the window, wrapped in nothing but silence and guilt. The city stretched out before her, unaware of the lines she had just crossed. lines that couldn't be uncrossed. Her engagement ring felt heavier than usual when she picked it up from the nightstand and slid it back onto her finger. By the time Brian stirred, she was dressed and ready to go. He sat up, raking a hand through his hair. "You're leaving without a word?" Tanya hesitated. "I don't know what to say." He stood, walked toward her, but stopped just short of touching her. "Say what you feel." She looked at him, then really looked. "I feel like I've lit a fire I can't put out." His jaw tightened. "Then let it burn." She wanted to kiss him again, but that wasn't what this moment called for. So she turned and left. Back home, Tanya didn't expect him to be there. She paused at the apartment door, key halfway in the lock, her heart sinking as soon as she heard the TV flicker from inside. She turned the knob slowly and stepped in. Ryan was on the couch, still dressed from the night before, eyes bloodshot and locked onto her the moment she entered. "Tanya." Her stomach clenched. She tried to keep her expression neutral, but his tone had already cut into her. "I didn't think you'd be here," she said carefully, setting down her bag. "Clearly." He stood, arms folded across his chest. "Where were you?" She hesitated. "I needed some space. I stayed at a hotel." Without saying anything, he snapped. "I called. I texted. All night. You didn't even read the messages." "I turned my phone off." Ryan gave a bitter laugh. "Of course you did." Tanya looked away. The guilt was back, wrapping around her like a second skin. He walked closer. "What's going on with you? You've been distant. You move funny, Tanya. Like you're always hiding something." She stiffened. "I'm not hiding anything." "Really?" His voice cracked with disbelief. "Because this disappearing act, the weird silences, the last minute, I need space, talk. This isn't normal. It feels like you're slipping away and I'm the last to know why." Tanya clenched her jaw, trying to stay composed. "Maybe I do need space, Ryan. Not forever. Just time." He stared at her for a long beat, his voice quieter now, almost pleading. "Are you still in this with me? Or am I holding on to someone who already let go?" She looked at him then, really looked, and hated the way her chest tightened. He was a good man. Flawed, yes. Insecure, often. But he loved her. And still her heart wasn't steady. Because someone else's hands had left their mark. Someone she had no business craving. "I don't have the answers yet," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryan stepped back like she'd slapped him. "Wow. Okay." He didn't argue further. He just turned, grabbed his keys, and walked out the door. Tanya stood there in the silence that followed, heart pounding. She had lied. And it was only getting harder to keep the truth buried. Ryan sat at the kitchen island of his parents' house, nursing a glass of whiskey he hadn't touched. His shoulders were tense, jaw clenched, his fingers tapping restlessly against the counter. Brian watched him from across the room. "You gonna tell me what's going on, or just sit there staring holes in the granite?" Ryan sighed, not looking up. "It's Tanya." Brian stilled. "What about her?" Ryan hesitated, then finally said it. "She came home this morning. Said she needed space. That she stayed at a hotel to think." He laughed bitterly. She turned her phone off. "Ignored me for a full day." Brian's throat went dry. He kept his expression still. "Did she say why?" "No." Ryan looked up now, and Brian hated the pain in his eyes. "She's been different lately. Distant. Ever since that night she came here to meet you and Mom, something changed." Brian tensed, masking it with a sip of coffee. "Changed how?" "She's just not present anymore. She zones out. Pulls away when I try to get close. I swear, it's like her mind is somewhere else, like she's with someone else." Brian's heart twisted. He wanted to look away, but forced himself to meet his son's gaze. "Do you think she's cheating on you?" "I don't know," Ryan muttered. "But I can't ignore how she's acting. It's like she's slipping through my fingers." Brian set his cup down with a quiet clink. "And what did she say this morning exactly?" "That she doesn't have answers yet." Ryan shook his head, trying to laugh it off but failing. "What the hell does that even mean? We're engaged. What kind of answer do you need when you're supposed to marry someone?" Brian crossed his arms, forcing calm into his voice. Maybe she's just confused. People panic before big commitments. She's hiding something, Ryan said flatly. And I can't shake the feeling that something started the night I brought her here. That dinner. That's when it shifted. Brian felt the weight of those words like a blade between his ribs. He remembered that night too well. The way Tanya had looked at him across the table, like she'd seen a ghost. The moment their eyes met and recognition bloomed into something more dangerous. Ryan, he said gently, you've got a good heart, but don't let it eat you alive. If she needs space, give it to her. If it's meant to work, it will. Ryan looked down. Yeah, maybe. But doubt was already a shadow in his eyes. And across from him, Brian sat in silence, knowing full well that the thing his son feared most was true. Tanya hadn't answered Brian's messages in 2 days. She told herself she was doing the right thing, staying away, keeping her distance, ending whatever it was that had started between them. She spent her hours pacing the apartment, staring at her phone, writing and deleting texts she never sent. Ryan hadn't come back home either. She was unraveling. The guilt pressed down on her like wet cement, but it wasn't enough to erase the way Brian's touch haunted her. The memory of that hotel night replayed in flashes. His mouth, his hands, the way he looked at her like he saw her. Not as Ryan's fiancée. Not as a mistake. But as a woman. She thought space would fix it. Silence would kill the spark. It didn't. When her phone buzzed that night and she saw his name on the screen, she almost didn't answer. But her thumb moved on its own. Just 1 minute. If you come, we don't have to talk. I just need to see you. Brian said. She paused for a long time. I've been trying to stay away, she said. I thought it would help. And is it helping? Brian asked. Tanya shook her head slowly, although Brian couldn't see her. No, it made it worse. I saw the way Ryan looked today, Tanya whispered. He suspects something. He told me how he feels like I'm slipping away. You are, Brian said softly. From him. I don't want to hurt him. I know, Brian replied, but I want you, she whispered. Brian smiled. Then stop pretending you don't. The call ended. Tanya couldn't hold it in anymore. The weight of her actions, the lies, the guilt, it had all piled up until there was nothing left to do but end it. She met Ryan at the cafe, the place they used to go to talk about everything. It felt like a lifetime ago. Her hands were shaking as she pushed the coffee cup around on the table, unable to meet his eyes. Ryan, she started, but the words felt like they were choking her. I can't do this anymore. Ryan looked at her, confused. What do you mean? She took a deep breath, swallowing down the lump in her throat. I'm not in love with you anymore. I don't think I ever was, not like I should have been. His face fell. What are you saying? You're just ending it? Tanya nodded, her eyes stinging with unshed tears. I can't keep lying to you, to myself. I've hurt you and I'm sorry. But it's over. Ryan just stared at her, like he couldn't process the words, like they hadn't actually left her lips. The silence stretched between them, heavy and unbearable. I don't understand, he whispered, almost pleading. Was there someone else? Tanya didn't answer right away. She couldn't. Because the answer was in her heart, the answer was Brian. Instead, she reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. I'm sorry, Ryan. I never wanted to hurt you. He pulled his hand back slowly, his eyes flashing with something cold. Anger. Yeah, me neither. Without another word, he stood up and walked away, leaving Tanya in the cafe, her heart breaking with every step he took. Ryan didn't go home. He didn't want to face the emptiness there. He couldn't, not after everything. So he drove aimlessly until he found himself in front of a hotel. He didn't know why he stopped. Maybe it was the alcohol calling to him, or maybe it was the need to escape. Either way, he booked a room, threw back a few drinks, and let the haze of whiskey dull the ache in his chest. Hours passed. He was leaning against the bar when he saw a familiar face. His father, Brian, walking through the hotel lobby. He was dressed in a suit, the kind Ryan only saw when his dad had important meetings. But tonight, something was different. There was an odd tension in the way Brian carried himself. His movements were slow, deliberate, like he was trying to hide something. Ryan's curiosity piqued. He watched as Brian stepped into an elevator and pressed the button for the top floor. Without thinking, Ryan followed, the urge to know more stronger than the sense of caution that usually held him back. Ryan lingered near the elevator for several minutes before stepping out into the hallway. He didn't know what he was expecting, maybe an answer to the gnawing doubt in his mind. Maybe something that would give him the clarity he was searching for. He stood there, waiting, watching the clock tick slowly. The longer he waited, the more uneasy he felt. The seconds felt like hours. Eventually, he couldn't take it anymore. He needed to know what his father was doing here. With a sudden burst of impulse, Ryan walked down the hallway, past the rooms, and stopped at the door where he saw his father enter. He knocked first, but there was no answer. His heart thudded heavily in his chest as he turned the handle. He didn't wait for an invitation. He didn't care. He opened the door. "Dad, Ryan's voice trailed off when he saw them. Brian was standing there, shirt off, his back to the door. Tanya was sitting on the edge of the bed, her face flushed, hair disheveled. It was as if the world had stopped spinning for a moment, and all the pieces of the puzzle had suddenly clicked together. Ryan's body went rigid. His pulse hammered in his ears, and his mind couldn't comprehend what his eyes were seeing. Brian turned slowly, his eyes wide with shock, but not in the way Ryan had expected. There was a moment of frozen silence before his father spoke. "Ryan," he said, his voice tight, like he was trying to breathe through a weight he couldn't shake. Ryan's voice caught in his throat. What is this?" Tanya stood up quickly, her hands trembling. "Ryan, I'm sorry." But Ryan couldn't hear her. His vision blurred, the reality of the moment crashing down on him like a wave. He stared at his father, then back at Tanya, his whole world imploding in front of him. "No. This can't be happening," he choked out, his throat tight with disbelief. "You too?" The truth hung in the air like poison, choking the life out of everything he thought he knew. And in that moment, Ryan realized how far the betrayal ran. It wasn't just his heart they had broken. It was his entire world. Ryan stumbled backward, his mind unable to keep up with the flood of reality crashing over him. He wanted to scream, to shout, to demand answers, but his voice failed him. His heart thudded painfully in his chest as he tried to process what he'd just seen, his own father with Tanya. The betrayal was suffocating. He couldn't tear his eyes away from them, as though if he stared long enough, it might all make sense. But it never would. His breath came in shallow gasps, his vision blurry with the sting of tears he refused to shed. His body moved on autopilot, a blind reaction to the chaos in his head. He took another step back, away from the scene in front of him, still struggling to breathe, still fighting to escape the weight of his own emotions. Then, without warning, his foot caught the edge of the stairwell. His heart froze, the world spinning around him in slow motion as his body tipped backward, arms flailing, trying to grab hold of something, anything, to stop the inevitable. His father and Tanya screamed in unison, their voices desperate, but it was too late. "Ryan, stop." The words were lost to him as his body careened backward, the sharp edge of the stairs catching him off guard. He hit the ground with a sickening thud, the impact rattling through his bones, and then silence. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. And as the room around him descended into chaos, the only sound left was the distant echo of his father's voice, broken, pleading. Brian rushed to him, his hands shaking as he reached for Ryan, but it was too late. Tanya stood there, her hands clasped tightly to her mouth, her face pale as she watched the man she loved and the man she had once promised herself to, both lost in an instant. The guilt weighed heavy on her chest, unbearable. She had wanted to stop it all, to end the forbidden relationship, to do the right thing. But now everything was shattered, and Ryan was gone. Brian looked down at his son, his body lifeless, and in that moment, everything he had done, the decisions, the choices, the betrayals, came crashing down. He had lost his son, his own flesh and blood, and it was his fault. "Ryan," Brian whispered, the name escaping his lips like a prayer, but there was no answer. Tanya stood still, unable to move, unable to speak. She had been the cause of it all. The affair. The lies. And now, Ryan, she had lost him too. Tears streamed down her face as she looked between the two men, her fiancé and his father, both of them shattered by her actions. Her heart felt hollow, broken in ways she couldn't explain. In the dim light of the hotel room, silence lingered, heavy, suffocating, and final. The forbidden love they had shared, the choice they had made, had all led to this moment. And in the stillness of that night, everything, every whisper, every stolen touch, was forever lost. And Ryan would never come back. Then, thank you for watching.